Good morning, Baltimore. It is Thursday, June 4th, and thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of the Early Birds podcast. I'm your host, Matt Weyrich, alongside Ravens reporter Sam Cohn, who just wrapped up third week of OTAs out there. How are you enjoying your offseason so far, Sam? I hear you're spending a lot of time at the pool.
Yeah, I don't know what day it is. I am spending middle of the workday at the pool. Do I look tan?
You do look tan. I noticed that when you walked in.
Part of that's just because we get the full 2 hour, like in season, we get about 30 minutes of practice where we spend outside. And obviously it's a little bit colder in season, but during OTAs, mini camp, training camp, you're out there in the sun for the full 2 hours. And this week we were blessed with 75 and sunny. It was like kind of perfect weather. The first open OTA was 90 degrees. I think the second one was like in the 80s and it was hot. This one was, or no, maybe the second one rained a little bit. Whatever it was, we had some hot ones, and then this week was perfect. But a lot of time in the sun and trying to make the most of my off season.
Now you know how we feel at spring training.
Yeah, oh my God, I can only imagine. Where do you get the tan line the worst? The neck, the
Definitely
arms?
the arms, which I tried to go to the beach a good amount this year to balance that out. It's always a battle because you have to be there at like 7:30 in the morning, and you're there until like 4 or 5 in the afternoon. So you're really not there at the beach, even if you make it there for like peak tanning time. So it's a fruitless effort to try and avoid the farmer's tan. Happens either way.
Yeah, my first Ravens training camp I covered, I got a gnarly credential tan line because I did not put enough sunscreen on the back of my neck, and the credential was around my neck. And I got home, and there was like a huge line around. I was like, oh God, it looks pretty goofy. So I learned my lesson.
That reminds me of a concert I went to summer between junior and senior of college. I went to a Snoop Dogg concert.
Way.
Dude, it was free in New Jersey.
That's
4th of July.
That's
it was
so
sick. And I was front row. And when we went in, they had these like beads, that they gave everybody. And mine were like bright blue. Had them on the whole time. And I was sweating because we stood there for like 5 hours before they came on. And we were in the sun and everything, 4th of July. And when we go down to the train to go back to me and my roommate's place, I take off the beads and I just have this blue streak all the way around my neck. It was stained on there for 2 weeks. I had a blue stain on I had to go to work and everything. Luckily, I was wearing like polo shirts, so it kind of covered it. But even if it went down a little, like it was bright blue line.
That's so funny. Everyone knows how you spent your weekend.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
But yeah, we are here to talk some Ravens today. Get Sam's observations from the third and final open practice at OTAs with some comments from Declan Doyle, Anthony Weaver, as well as Zay Flowers. Talk about some special team stuff, standouts, all that kind of stuff. And then on the back end of the show, we're actually doing both, Orioles and Ravens. I feel like we've been alternating a lot. But we had on Wednesday, the All-Star ballots were announced for MLB. So we'll talk about a couple of Orioles who might have cases as fan voting gets underway. But first, we got to talk about Jacoby Lane.
Yeah. Which Josh sent me this video, so I want to credit Josh. But do you want to explain it or shall I?
You go ahead.
So Josh sends me a video of Jacoby Lane at some store, presumably the guy. It seemed like he knew the guy. I don't have the name in front of me. Buying $30,000 worth of Chrome Hearts, which is a popular brand, designer brand. I think he bought a pair of pants, he bought a shirt, and he bought a watch, and he spent $30K on the whole thing. And the whole video is like them laughing and haggling about money and how much each item was going to cost and whatever. Jacoby Lane, third round pick, presumably got a nice rookie deal. The Ravens like to do. So eventually, they sometimes put out these videos. I don't know if they'll do it under the Jesse Minter era, but Harbaugh used to do it with his rookies, where they'd be in a big team meeting and rookies would have to stand up, name, draft pick, how much you got in your signing bonus. And I remember there's some video of Kyle Hamilton saying how much he got in his signing bonus, and everyone like throwing stuff at him and like going crazy because he made a lot of money. So begs the question, and Josh encouraged us to have this conversation of, Matt, if you're a rookie getting 30K, if you're a rookie coming into rookie money, what are you spending? What are you spending your money on in that first off season before you play actual football?
Investing in the stock market, 401k. No, obviously not. That would be if I got that money right now.
Yeah.
We were talking before the show. I'd be paying off my car loan, putting down money for a house, that kind of thing. But if I'm a rookie coming in and I gotta blow it on something. I like fast cars, man. I think I would definitely be going for a Corvette, maybe. I love me a Stingray. They're beautiful cars. Can't drive stick though, so I'd have to teach myself stick to have a car like that. Can't be getting an automatic Corvette.
Sure.
But I think car would probably be my number one. I mean, I'd love a baller house, but I'd like to think that even if I got into all that money, I wouldn't just buy a house outright. I would hopefully still just get a mortgage and pay it off.
Yeah, I also don't think a lot of these guys are buying property at this point.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know how long you're going to be somewhere,
Sure.
Whatever. But I think I'd probably go close too. There's not a lot of things I spend a lot
30K
of
on
money
an
on.
outfit?
No, I don't think I can. It's okay. It's funny you bring this up. When I was in 4th grade, Matt, we did a class project where you got, shoot, I'm not going to remember the number. I want to say it was like it was either $100,000 or like $1 million of fake money. And the goal of the project was like, spend all of the money and how would you spend it and what would you spend it on. This is kind of reminding me of that. And like, it's hard to spend that much money. I guess in today's day and age, it's maybe not so hard. You can find things to blow a lot of money on. But when you have a lot of money, like, it's hard to blow all of it. So I'd like to think, watching Jacoby Lane, like, it is funny. I'd like to think that I would be like smart about where I'm putting my money, but I would 1000% do what Jacoby Lane is doing and like splurge a little bit, buy myself a few presents. He's also definitely someone who made some nice money in NIL when he was
True. It's a very different league than it was.
So he's
2 years ago.
not just coming into all this money. Like,
Correct.
he was doing okay, presumably with his NIL money, and has had some money in the bank. So I think close. I'd probably buy my family a present. I probably night one I sign the check, I'm going out and like having a really, 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 really expensive and fancy dinner.
Oh yeah.
That's probably like night one.
I think a personal chef in general would be an awesome purchase.
One more, and I thought of this before we were talking, and then I forgot about it until right now. Because you were talking about like, oh, if we had it in our own lives, house, whatever, mortgage, car payments. But like, if I'm an NFL player, I've heard so many NFL players realize in year 3 that they should have been investing more money in their bodies, buying like at-home cryo chambers and, you mentioned a personal chef or just equipment to have at home for recovery. Probably spend a lot of it on that before I start playing actual football.
Yeah, I think investing a bunch in yourself right away, even if you're not putting it away for saving money purposes, like, you would argue that for a football player, the best investment you can make is in your career. And if you can do more of that, I'm all for it. So yeah, I think a personal chef, one, just saves me the time, having to prepare meals, think about meals. That's the one thing they'll tell you about being an adult is that you have to have dinner every single night and you have to make it. You got to plan it. I say that as my wife is very gracious and cooks a lot of our meals, but I still have to help her plan it and come up with it. Like, I do the dishes afterwards, like that all takes time. I don't want to think about those kinds of things.
That all said, good for Jacoby Lane buying himself. I'm sure he's investing his money in other smart ways too. And he's also probably the best dressed of all the rookies.
This is true. Hard to knock the swag there. So let's talk about OTAs here. And we heard from both Anthony Weaver and Declan Doyle some really interesting quotes, human computer, coming out about these two guys. What was just your biggest takeaway from the two of them taking the podium?
Yeah, well, let's start there with Declan Doyle. And we had talked a little about this earlier, that like the pressure on these two guys, the conversations we're going to have about these two guys over the next year are going to be very different, because Anthony Weaver is someone who has spent a lot of time coaching in this league, someone who's a proven defensive coordinator, and it's also not his defense and he's not calling the plays. He's coming in to be a guy who can connect this group to the history, and that was something that he did talk about. And he's an extension of what Jesse Minter's defense is going to be. So the expectations on him aren't as high. His goal is just to raise all ships. His goal is to help each of these guys, is to help get the most out of each of these guys individually on the field in a way that makes sense in Jesse's defense. Declan Doyle, obviously Jesse Minter is going to have a big hand in what the offense looks and feels like and the product on the field. But by and large, this is Declan Doyle's offense. And Anthony Weaver said that he said he's like a human computer, and sometimes he has this it's like he's got a photographic memory. And after he said that, I asked Zay Flowers, is that been his experience too? And Zay said something to the effect of he's so smart out there, he's like a genius, and that he'll call plays that he talks so fast, and he's calling plays that Zay's never even seen or never even heard of. And the way that those two, just these guys are so bubbly, and like you can see in the way that it's so earnest in the way they describe Declan Doyle that he's making a damn good first impression.
No, 100%. I mean, to come in with the new coaching staff and what you hear from players about the communication and everything that is coming from these guys. I mean, it's kind of what Declan Doyle was in the Bears offense last year when you have the head coach that is calling plays. That coordinator then kind of becomes the middleman, the guy who can, maybe help out with the positional coaches and working on specific fine-tuning things with players and things like that. So you almost kind of form a closer relationship between player and coach when the coordinator doesn't have to call the plays and isn't designing the offense. I mean, certainly he's having a role in those overall decisions, but from a coaching and in practice standpoint, uh, definitely going to see kind of a different style of coaching than we're used to seeing in Baltimore, where we've had a special teams coach be the head coach for so long. It's a rare thing to see across the NFL, but for Ravens fans, this is something completely new now
Hmm.
that we haven't seen in almost 2 decades of a coach coming in and being like, okay, this is my side of the ball. I'm going to have somebody work under me, but this is going to be me at the end of the day. It is where the common NFL trend has gone to, maybe more on the offensive side than the defensive side, but still for that just kind of hierarchy of leadership, it definitely creates a different atmosphere and different communication tree than we are used to seeing in years past.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about this before, just the idea that you can't really learn a whole lot in OTAs because the practices are voluntary. So when you don't have presumably your wide receiver two and Rashad Bateman there, and you don't have your starting left tackle and Ronnie Stanley, and different guys are getting reps with different team, like first team, second team, and there's a lot of shuffling. There's only so much you can really learn from the on-field, like guys making plays. Just always feels like fool's gold. And we've talked about this idea that like we've seen snippets of Declan Doyle's offense, but it's going to make a lot more sense once we get closer to training camp and we start to see a little bit more in action with pads and these guys going at full speed of what this looks like. But I think the most interesting thing we can learn now, and take it all with a grain of salt, because it's everything is beautiful and the sky is purple and everything is amazing in June, and shit's gonna get real come August and September and October. But the way these guys talk about Declan Doyle so far has been really eye opening, because the guy's 30 and he's never called plays for an NFL team before. He's new at this, but right away it's clear there's a level of respect there. And I think there's definitely a difference between, and I think about this from like the Mark Andrews perspective, where hearing him talk about guys, like he can be a very mild mannered guy, and he's the kind of guy who can say like, we've felt like he's been good. Now he hasn't talked yet, I should be clear, in OTAs, but he's the kind of guy who might be who has this sort of presence where he'd say, um, he's doing a good job. It's been good to get to know him, and he'll be kind of very calm and mild mannered. But the way these guys so earnestly speak about how impressive Declan Doyle has been, Zay Flowers talking about like when he teaches us plays, he teaches it in a way that helps you remember it. And Anthony Weaver saying like it's crazy they'll be in these meeting rooms and Declan Doyle has this photographic memory of plays he ran years ago that makes sense in this offense, and it's pushed Anthony Weaver to spend more time in defensive meetings, game planning for what that looks like in practice and game planning against it. It's like it just feels so earnest in what they're saying about Declan Doyle that who knows if this translates to genuinely good football. But a lot of these guys seem genuinely impressed with the way that he's carried himself thus far, just 3 weeks into practicing together.
Yeah, I mean, it started with Sean McVay of bringing in these younger, forward-thinking type offensive guys who, like you say, kind of think like a computer, the photographic memory. I mean, I've seen interviews of McVay where he's recalling plays from 10 years ago and even knowing the pre-snap motions and things like that to it. Like that to have that kind of offensive coordinator, it's got to be an exciting prospect for these guys, who are used to your Todd Munkins and Greg Romans, who aren't exactly, young and cutting edge, offensive thinkers. Like this is a very different approach to the offense. We saw like in LA, they're going with Mike McDaniel over there. Like I think putting those guys in head coaching positions has been a bit hit or miss, but for the most part, this kind of mold has had a lot of success. At the NFL level, and a lot of those guys have been pulled from the Sean McVay coaching tree. This is coming from the Ben Johnson coaching tree, and really Declan Doyle is the first guy to be coming out of that. So it's the first test of whether or not the Ben Johnson mind, extends to his, coaches that leave and move on. So it's a really an interesting experiment for this team, and just another example of how they're doing things differently now. But to have your head coach on the defensive side of the ball, it really is all Declan Doyle's offense, which is a huge test for a guy who has literally never called plays at the NFL level. It'd be one thing if they're bringing in somebody, who ran their own offense on another team. They're doing it with a guy who, they're taking a chance on. And that's absolutely going to come with some risks. But I think it's one where, obviously it comes down to the guy at the end of the day, but one that is worth trying in today's NFL. And also I think really a recognition from Ravens brass, Ravens front office, that this is the way the league has gone. Maybe it passed them by a little bit, and to kind of get another run here with Lamar, that was the best way to help elevate the offense. So I think it's a really exciting prospect, honestly.
Yeah, and we've heard strictly from offensive players over the first couple OTAs: Zay Flowers, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and John Simpson. And those guys have just used the same word. Like, it's been fun working with Declan Doyle, learning this new offense. It's been a fun process. We talked about last week how Lamar called it a breath of fresh air. These guys seem like they're really buying into what Declan Doyle and this staff is selling, which in May and June is really all you can ask for, because they're just learning as much as they can, as quickly as they can, to get up to speed to be ready for in a couple months. Switching over to the defense, I think the biggest thing again about Anthony Weaver is, can he, one, be in lockstep with Jesse Minter in what he's teaching and the product that they want to put on the field? And two, can he get the most out of some of these guys? The one position group I think I want to focus on the most with you, Matt, was the pass rush, which, as we know, was top 2 in the NFL for 2 years in a row, and then last year was in the cellar of the NFL. Really, really took a step back. So you have Mike Green coming into year 2. You spent a lot of money to go get Trey Hendrickson to be your closer. You draft Zion Young in the second round to be able to make an impact, and you bring back the glass eater and Tavius Robinson, and you look at that group and you say, can that get back to what you were just a couple years ago with that pass rush group, with a defensive coordinator who came from coaching defensive line and playing defensive line, and a head coach who famously got the most out of Odafe Owe in Los Angeles. And again, of course, everything is sunshine and rainbows this time of year, but Anthony Weaver had a lot of really good things to say about those 3 guys. Just to kind of rattle through Zion Young, he said the kid is as advertised, and he is so excited because of how excited he's seen Zion Young. Like, the best thing you can hear a coach say about a rookie is that he's just like so eager to learn and happy to be there. And if you go read, I wrote about Zion Young shortly after the draft, like, that's who he is. He's that guy all the time. He wants to be there and he wants to learn. Trey Hendrickson, everyone just kind of says like he's a pro. He's a really good leader, and Anthony Weaver said he treats every play in OTAs like it's the most important play in the history of football. That's what you expect from a guy who's had 4 double-digit sack seasons and has played as long as he has in this league. And then Mike Green, who we saw turn a corner a little bit last year. He finishes with 3.5 sacks. Anthony Weaver gets here, sits down with him, shows him a cut-up of a bunch of plays from last year, and says, you were milliseconds away from a double-digit sack season. I'm going to get you over that hump. I'm going to get you to that level. And he sets the bar pretty high to say that he feels like he can get double digits out of Mike Green. If they can get double digits out of Mike Green, if they can get what they expect out of Trey Hendrickson, and if they can get anything from Zion Young in terms of logging a few sacks, and then Tavius Robinson contributes, I think he had 4.5 sacks last year, maybe. But if they can get that kind of contribution, you're looking at what you saw, 2 and 3 years ago, and a pass rush that gets back to this idea of being feared, violent, and one of the best in football.
Yeah, I think it says a lot that that's the kind of expectations that are being conveyed to Mike Green. I mean, obviously you have Tavius Robinson, who's maybe the higher floor player for the opposite side in terms of edge rushing, but to have Zion Young, who you just spent a premium draft pick on, to have a player in Robinson who, you, like I said, higher floor player that you can kind of plug in and not feel like you have a hole. But to say Mike Green, you're going to have that kind of season opposite of Trey Hendrickson, I mean, it tells you right there what kind of role that they have for him. And as we, it's June 4th. way too early to say what the rotation is going to kind of be between those four guys. But to say that Mike Green is very much in the plans to be, or at least first and second down back, or first and second down edge rusher opposite Hendrickson, I think says a lot about the confidence that they have in him. And we've talked about how it's one of the biggest tests for Jesse Minter is what they're able to do with him. But clearly the confidence is there, and the expectation is that he's going to be that kind of player in this defense. So really, as we kind of get a better sense of how this defense is going to be deployed and where guys are going to fit in, I think you can certainly count on Mike Green logging a fair number of snaps, certainly from a starter perspective.
Without a doubt. And think about just, again, when they were near the top of the league, what that looked like 2 years ago. It was Kyle Van Noy, I think, had 12, and Adafe Owe hit 10. And if you can get, Trey Hendrickson had 17 pretty recently. Like if you can get those kind of numbers from Trey Hendrickson, if you can get double digits from Mike Green, if Nnamdi Madubuike is healthy and can contribute, if Calais Campbell can give you a handful, if Zion Young can get a handful, like you're looking at a group that, I'm careful what I'm saying now because, I mean, it's become a little bit of a joke, and I think he meant it seriously. But at the time last year, Chuck Pagano called the secondary the best secondary he'd ever coached in his entire football coaching career, and they didn't turn out to be that good. So again,
and not much turnover there.
Yeah,
it's kind of the same guys.
Exactly, minus Jair Alexander. Yeah. So I'm careful with all of what we're saying, but it is a lofty expectation with a very high ceiling for this group, I think, is where I land.
Certainly has the potential to be the best unit on this defense as far as positional group wise. Let's talk some special teams here. What would you glean from Anthony Levine Sr.? And curious, just watching special teams out on the field during OTAs. I mean, all the caveats of OTAs, but what's the personnel that you kind of saw taking punts, taking kicks, that kind of thing?
Sure. I'll start with just kind of the broad takeaway from Anthony Levine's press conference was, I think, the most interesting question, and he's one of just a few guys who was with the Harbaugh's coaching staff last year and stays this year. So one of only a few guys coaches who you can ask about how things are a little bit different. And as you mentioned, Harbaugh is a lifelong special teams a special teams coach at heart, and was something that he really prioritized both in practice and in study, and just focusing on that as the third phase of the game. And someone asked him, like, do you feel like there's been any kind of drop off in terms of how much it's being prioritized? How do you envision what special teams looks and feels like under Jesse Minter? And CoCap said sort of like, doesn't feel like there's any drop off at all, that Jesse Minter is in a lot of special teams meetings, that if he needs a little bit more time in practice, he can go to Jesse Minter and say, I need a little bit more time in practice to work on this, and he'll get that go ahead. If he says, you know what, we've done enough for today, we're good, that's fine. And it's something that he really cares about. And he kind of I think he ended his press conference by saying, it's something that Jesse Minter will not allow them to fall off. And he's like, and I won't let it happen either. So if Jesse Minter gets to the point where, he's focused on some other things and he sort of lets special teams fall by the wayside, like CoCap's going to be the one who says, like, hey, we need to make sure that we are on point with this kind of stuff. So sounds like that is still a priority. And obviously it's good to have someone like that in power in charge of the special teams unit. As far as personnel goes, we expect to see LeJontay Wester taking returns again. We expect to see Justice Hill in the mix taking returns again. Keaton Mitchell gone, Tylan Wallace gone. You're looking at who are those other guys going to be. I think we're going to see more of Rasheen Ali in the mix, and then I wonder if a guy like Elijah Surratt can be in the mix there to take returns. I think we've seen a handful of other guys kind of rotate in. I'm blanking on. There was someone else. I'm blanking on a name here, but it will be something interesting to watch, just because two of your most prominent returners in Keaton Mitchell and Tylan Wallace are gone. And I think LeJontay Wester probably takes that step forward. I think they really do view him as their guy on the return team, but I'm interested to see kind of how that shuffles out and who are some other guys in the mix there as the summer goes on.
Yeah, certainly a lot of turnover on the special team side. Also with Jordan Stout moving on, you have Tyler Loop moving into his second season. Maybe they start to trust him a little bit more for deeper kicks, things like that, or at least try him out on deeper kicks, as he really didn't take a whole lot of 50-plus yarders last year or kick in very big scenarios.
As we know, came back to bite him.
and certainly did. And you have to have some experience in those situations if you're gonna let your entire season fall upon the leg of that kicker.
They don't go back to Pittsburgh until December,
I know.
which
Was it 2 of the
makes
last 3 weeks or 3 of the last 4?
yeah, I
Or 2
think
of the
it's
last
two of the
4?
last. I think it's three of the last four because I think they played before they play the Bengals on New Year's Eve. But which makes sense because if you're the NFL, you're like, we want to set up the most pressure on these games as possible.
Mhm.
If you're Tyler Loop, you're probably like, I want to get there as soon as
Right.
possible.
Please
Just get me in
any
the
other
first
memory from Pittsburgh.
in the first quarter. I want to go like I want if you're Loop, you're like, I want to go week 1. I want the ball first, and I want us to get stalled and I on the first drive, and I want to kick a 44-yarder at shoot, what do they call us on Heinz Field anymore?
It's something insurance.
Whatever it is. I want to go to
Terrible name.
I want to go to Pittsburgh. I should know this. I'm embarrassed. I want to go to Pittsburgh, and I want the first drive week 1. I want to go kick a 44-yarder because he's probably eager, crawling out of his skin to get back to that moment and get a second chance. But like you said, like they just, the hope is that he can get a few more of those kicks in the regular season to be better prepared for if he needs to be the one to decide their season.
All right, let's put a bow on OTAs here. As far as standouts in the padless reps that you saw guys take, who were 3 or 4 guys that stood out most to you?
I'll give you some quick ones. Definitely think Zion Young. I feel like there have been times where in the pass rush, he hasn't been particularly jump off the page, but it's very obvious he's active and present in run defense. His physical stature is really hard to miss. But in this week in the third open OTA, I mean, he bullied Emory Jones on 1 rep. Emory Jones had been moved out to tackle, I think it was a right tackle on this rep, and which Emory Jones you expect to play more inside at guard, but Zion Young came off the edge, put 2 hands in his chest and just shoved him right back. So to go back to that pass rush conversation, like that's going to be his superpower, or that's going to be the way that he can influence this pass rush, just as a guy who can get a mismatch and knock a guy onto his butt and get in the backfield because he is so relentless when he crosses that line. So he's been super active defensively in run defense, and I think we're going to start to see more of that. But saw one play like where he really he really made Emory Jones look bad on that rep. So Zion Young is my first one. Safety Jalen Hawkins. I think that he hasn't necessarily doesn't have an interception, hasn't made like a big play of OTAs, which as a reminder, big plays shouldn't count as big plays in OTAs. But without Kyle Hamilton really being there, Malachi Starks missed one. Jalen Hawkins, I just feel like we've seen a lot of him. He's always on the field. He's always near the ball. He's got an energy that kind of rubs off on guys. He's either dancing on the sideline, he's talking to Nate Wiggins, he's chopping up with Kyle Hamilton when he's in street clothes. Like he just feels like such a presence, and I think in OTAs that means as much as going out there and making a play. He's always near the ball, and he seems like he's going to fit right in with this team. So I certainly think he was a standout for several reasons. And then the third one I'll give you is Adam Randall, rookie running back, famously the Steve Bisciotti pick in the 5th round out of Clemson. I almost said Tennessee, out of Clemson. And Adam Randall, more than anything, is just like getting a bunch of reps. Obviously, Derrick Henry is going to be their RB1. Justice Hill has a solidified role as a pass catcher out of the backfield. I start to wonder if Adam Randall is going to usurp Rasheen Ali on the depth chart.
So you're telling me in my Dynasty Fantasy Football League, I should be drafting Adam Randall on my taxi squad, keep him around for
Dynasty.
Yeah.
Oh, then honestly, maybe. I think to hear Derrick Henry say, that's a big boy.
Of all people.
Dear Derrick
You're
Henry
Derrick
say
Henry.
That. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we've just seen him get a lot of reps. He seems fluid out there. He seems confident out there. And you can't tackle the guy because there are no pads, and you can't tackle in these practices. But time and again, he does the thing that Mark Andrews has done for years, which is in a training camp practice where you can't tackle a player, I should say an OTA voluntary practice where you can't tackle a guy. If he gets the ball and he gets out into space and then guys kind of whack at him, he's still going to run the length of the field. Like Adam Randall's doing that. Like, I'm going to give him my absolute all on every play. I'm not saying that in 2026 he's going to be a huge contributor, but I'm interested to see what his role looks like this year because based on the small sample size we've seen in OTAs, it seems like he's in the mix to get some touches in some capacity, and they will utilize his versatility as a former receiver and a big-bodied guy who can maybe do a couple different things for them on offense. And surely the always creative Declan Doyle will find ways to utilize a guy like that.
Yeah, this Ravens offense just has so many unconventional weapons. I mean, to have a wide receiver one who's like Zay Flowers, smaller in stature, a yak guy to be your number one, to have a running back in Adam Randall who is a big bodied receiver type. Derrick Henry, who's a traditional through the tackles guy, as opposed to maybe your today's game where you want running backs to be able to swing out and catch passes, things like that. To have a tight end in Mark Andrews, who's such a focal point of the offense. I mean, it's a very uniquely, and then Lamar, who's just a one-of-one type player himself.
Of course.
So many unique.
Declan Doyle called him the twitchiest player he'd ever been around. He's like, I wasn't surprised by anything, but like he really is the twitchiest player I've ever been around.
I mean,
so
have you seen him make cuts in the open field?
Yeah, I'd say that checks out.
Yeah,
anyway,
100%. No, I'm just saying, like, it is certainly, and Randall's a part of that, of just such an interesting offense, and I think a lot of different ways that this offense can kind of go in terms of who is going to be the primary drivers behind, at the end of the day, the production and the running and the receiving game. A lot of ways that this group could look as the season goes on.
And then how does Declan Doyle kind of utilize? Right now he's got 4 tight ends.
Yeah.
Mark Andrews, Durham Smythe is more of a blocking tight end, and then you're looking at Cuevas and Hibner, the 2 rookies. Presumably you go into the season with 3 on the roster, and maybe 1 is your practice squad guy, but like that's an intriguing tight end room, and Declan Doyle famously likes to use tight ends in his offense, and what he does with those guys is like adds another wrinkle to, and that's part of the reason why I say it, Declan Doyle will find a way to get a guy like Adam Randall, if he can show that he can be a playmaker, if he can show that he can be a guy who's utilized in different ways. Like Declan Doyle is going to find a way to get him in there, probably because he's thinking about a play he ran 7 years ago that someone taught him on a napkin in a restaurant. I was like, you should consider this, and he hasn't thought about it since. And he brought it up in a meeting. He's like, I remember, because he's like, got that kind of brain. He'll find ways to get these guys touches or involved in funky offensive schemes.
So between now and training camp, what are you kind of thinking about? What do Ravens fans have to consider, think about over these next couple of months as we wait for the rest of the offseason to go its way?
Is Zay Flowers going to get an extension between now and training camp? We have mandatory minicamp next week. Is Nnamdi Madubuike going to be present for mandatory minicamp? Are we going to have to wait till training camp? Are we going to see number 92 out on the field in a jersey run around at all? It'll be interesting to watch for. Hopefully you get a chance to see Calais Campbell and Travis Jones out there too at mandatory minicamp. Presumably all these guys will be there because of all the positions around the field, interior defensive line is the one where we haven't seen a single starter take any reps. There have been a couple guys throughout the field, but like that's the one position group we just haven't seen any. So I think, yeah, Zay Flowers, whether we see Nnamdi next week. I'm trying to think if there's anything else off the top of my head that really but other than that, just kind of waiting to see how this product turns onto the field. I mean, as these guys get back into Owings Mills, as these guys get on the field, and we get closer to training camp, I think that's the most exciting thing, right? It's just to wonder, to learn, and to prognosticate now, and to better understand come August, just what the hell this new team looks like on the field together when they're in pads and can hit each other.
Yep. Starting to come together here. The June 1st deadline has passed. So if the Ravens are going to make a move at the center position now, is kind of the time. We saw a couple of trades, obviously, and we didn't even touch on it, but Myles Garrett is no longer in the division anymore.
That's true.
The Giants went out and got Odell Beckham Jr. and Juju Smith-Schuster. So a couple of big moves there. There was another trade.
A.J. Brown.
So
did the Ravens go get Stephon Diggs? I don't think so at this point, but they've been known over the last few years to wait and get a veteran receiver.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they bring back DeAndre Hopkins, but like, do they see a world where they feel like they need a veteran receiver for this group? Because right now, Zay Flowers feels weird being the old guy in the room. So yeah, you mentioned maybe a trade for a center. Maybe they try to go sign a wide receiver. Maybe they see another free agent sometime this summer they want to go sign. And then maybe there's an extension sign over the next month or so.
And we saw that with Campbell already, of them kind of post-draft making moves. They brought in Skylar Thompson as well. So a couple of moves around the edges, which is probably what happens at this point of the offseason anyway. But it ain't over till it's over. So that's OTAs. He's Sam Cohn when he's not at the pool hanging out. He is at Owings Mills thinking about when he's going to see Nnamdi Madubuike again. Let's talk some Orioles.
Let's do it.
All-Star ballots were announced on Wednesday. Today's Thursday? Yes. We were just talking about, we don't know the days of the week. Today was Wednesday. You are listening Thursday. And MLB released its All-Star ballots. And I tweeted this out, but I always find it interesting what teams decide to include on their ballots. Like, they get to pick who is going to be the representative at every position. You know, like Adley Rutschman at catcher with Samuel Basallo at DH was kind of no surprise. They did go Jeremiah Jackson at second base over Jackson Holliday, which Jeremiah Jackson's numbers have slipped a lot. And Holliday, well, he hasn't played a whole lot yet, has the name brand, and, you know, maybe by the time voting heats up over the next month, he gets going and all of a sudden he can get more traction in that race. They decided no, they went with Jeremiah Jackson. Third base with Kobe Mayo over Blaze Alexander. And in the outfield, they go for, in right field, it was not Colton Cowser, but Dylan Beavers, who's been sidelined. And Cowser notably has played in more games and has more plate appearances than Dylan Beavers. Yet they decided to go with Beavers there, whose overall numbers are a little bit better, but Cowser's been surging lately. I mean, all this is kind of moot because these guys probably aren't going to be all-stars. But at the same time, I just find it interesting of the message that it kind of sends to your clubhouse and to players individually of who they decide to go with as their all-star ballots. But let's talk about a couple of Orioles here who might have a chance to get in. And I think the number one candidate, and as a reminder, the all-star ballots, the position player side is a fan vote for the starting lineup. So it'll be the first round is anybody, you know, each team's nominees each position. You can vote for any of them. And then the top two vote getters will then be pitted head to head against one another for fans to then vote in phase two. And then that decides who is going to be the starters. And then it'll come down to the commissioner's office and a player vote to fill out the pitching staff and the benches. But as far as the position players, Adley at catcher is probably their number one candidate to be an all-star across the team. Rutschman's having an excellent bounce-back season that we've talked about a lot. He ranks third among AL catchers right now in WAR by Fangraphs. It's 1.8 WAR behind Shea Langoliers of the Athletics and Dylan Dingler of the Tigers. Rutschman got off to a really hot start in April, but really it's his defense that has been kind of carrying his value. I think if he is going to make a serious run at this spot, it's probably going to have to be fans recognizing his name more than like a Dylan Dingler, which is definitely the case. You know, Langoliers, I think, carries some value there. His nickname's Bangoliers, which is an awesome nickname. Hits a lot of home runs and has been great for the Athletics. But for Rutschman, who is a former number one pick, former number one prospect, multiple-time All-Star himself, I have to think that his name will carry some weight there.
And also having the bounce back here that I think when you have that name recognition and you're playing below your standard and below your capabilities, people know your name even a little bit more because they either know you because you're living up to who you are, or they'll know your name because you're sucking. And Adley having that bounce back year kind of reignites that conversation and putting his name in people's heads.
No, 100%. If like it comes down to a pure numbers thing, I think he will have to pick it up here over the next month just to get some of his rate stats back up. He did miss some time on the injured list, missed like 15 games. So that in and of itself has kind of hurt some of his counting stats. His home run total, I believe he's only at 7 going into play on Wednesday. So certainly has some room to go in that regard. Langoliers is at 14. So not exactly knocking the cover off the ball in terms of his overall numbers, but they're good. They're very good, and certainly a return to form for him. So
value above anything
else. Yeah. Rutschman and his defense. I mean, his defense has been phenomenal. He's probably the number one framer in baseball this year, which just a couple of years ago, Rutschman was kind of a liability in that regard, particularly also with the running game. And he's been one of the best catchers at holding runners from stealing. So overall, I think Rutschman is absolutely deserving and probably the Orioles' best candidate here. Samuel Basallo, Josh and I talked about him on the last episode. He's listed at DH, which does kind of help him. He's not going to get in as a starter because of Yordan Alvarez. But I do think that Basallo stands a good chance of being the AL reserve at DH, being the number 2 guy. Rays, Yandy Diaz is probably his biggest competition, who we just saw. Diaz was just absolutely tormenting the Orioles in Tampa A very good player in and of his own right, but I think it's going to come down to playing time for Basayo.
It says a lot that we have 3 or 4 players on our list here of potential Orioles have a chance to be named All-Stars, and 2 of them are catchers. I mean, it's just the best.
Best catching tandem in baseball.
Yeah.
Period. Full stop.
Yep.
I mean, Basayo is already arrived. I mean, the month that he just had in May, we have seen now what it looks like when Samuel Basayo is at his best, and it is awesome. It is unequivocally awesome. Be able to hit from the left side and do what he's doing. Just absolutely tormenting right-handed pitching. He got a start against the lefty in Boston, so it hasn't been. They've been kind of giving him rest days on days that lefty starters are going, but they faced a lot of lefties lately, and they've had kind of no choice but to play him anyway. So that's a big vote of confidence from the coaching staff too, to give a player as young as him, an opportunity to face left-handed pitching. Fans clamor about this so much of like, they got to face lefties at the major league level if they're ever going to get good at it. And that's 100% true. But also, like, it is really hard, and it's very different from what you face in the minor leagues. I mean, any good left-handed pitcher that is a starter is going to be in the majors. They're not spending much time in AAA because they're harder to find, and they are such a huge weapon when you have them that you're not going to waste time keeping them in AAA unless they're like some top prospect who is still developing. All of the good left-handed pitchers are in the major leagues, whereas right-handed pitching, like, there's a lot to go around. When you're in AAA, there's still a big gap between that and the majors, but there are plenty of righties that get squeezed out of the major league rosters and are on AAA that you end up facing high velo righty guys. Like, you aren't going to be facing very many lefties who throw 98. That's just not the way it's going to go. You'll still see that from the right side in AAA. So it's just a different learning curve, and Basayo's usage reflects how they are trying to ease him into something like that. Jackson Holliday is kind of getting the same treatment as well. It's not a strict platoon at second, but is still getting some time in there against lefties. So it really just will come down to how many plate appearances he kind of has, and if he can make enough of an impact to really drive up his value as far as the DH spot by the time the All-Star game comes around. First base,
Pete Alonso. Feels like an uphill battle for him.
100%. A lot of guys in there. Ben Rice is having a fantastic season for the Yankees. Nick Kurtz is picked right up where he left off after winning Rookie of the Year last year. Jonathan Aranda's having a great season for the Rays. Munetaka Murakami, who we talked about in the last episode, hurt right now, but is already at 20 home runs for the White Sox. So certainly for Alonso, if he's going to be, making a case at first, he's going to have to go on some kind of run here. He's kind of looking like he's doing just that right now. But I'm talking like, 8 home runs in a month or something to really capture fans' attention. His batting average and his OPS need some room to grow there. And if he could get to 20 homers in a hurry, I think certainly he could thrust himself into that conversation, but a lot of names he has to climb over.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think we only had those 3, right? Or
yeah, as far as
beyond
position
that,
players.
Mustard, maybe?
No, ketchup maybe with the season he's having. No, I mean, maybe you can say Taylor Ward if he were to pick things up, but he's really kind of all he's doing is walking now. Like, even he was hitting his doubles and things like that, even though he wasn't hitting for homers. But now a lot of the extra base hits have kind of subsided completely, and we're just kind of seeing singles and walks from him. So great on base machine. Good, exactly what they need at the top of the lineup. Not exactly what they thought they were getting in him, but certainly a solid season. Just I don't know if it's going to be all-star quality. And then it would have to be like a Jackson Holliday, going on a tear. And then on the pitching side, it's Rico Garcia. It's not going to be a fan vote, but by the time the commissioner's office, gets to decide and everything, the only thing is not a lot of relievers get into the All-Star game. Like, usually they fill up most of the pitcher slots with starters. So only 3, 4, maybe 5 relievers will make the AL All-Star team, and there's a couple of big closers with high save totals that might squeeze him out. But when you have an 0.68 ERA like Rico has, hard to argue with that. I mean, Yennier Cano got in as a setup man in 2023. It is certainly possible.
Yeah.
It just might. He is really going to have to maintain this minuscule ERA and continue pitching the way he has, because when you don't have the high save totals, he has one blow-up outing where he gives up 4 runs, and that might cost him the All-Star game.
As we stand in early June, what were you putting the over-under with the season the Orioles have had? There's so many struggles, a little bit of resurgence. Obviously, we don't know what the next month is going to tell us, but where would you put the over-under on how many All-Stars the Orioles have?
I'd put the over-under. I mean, you have to have one. Every team has one, so I would put it at 1.5 right now. It's. I think the question is who joins Adley?
Yeah.
Because even if Adley loses the fan vote to say Shea Langeliers, I would probably assume that he gets the backup catcher nod, just based off. Like, at the end of the day, it's about who fans want to see.
Yeah.
And Dylan Dingler might have a slightly better case than Adley Rutschman right now, but do fans really want to see Dylan Dingler in the All-Star game over Adley Rutschman? Probably not. So that might come down to it. Also, if no one else makes it, they're going to need one. So maybe Rutschman is the one that the Orioles get. Last year it was Ryan O'Hearn. He actually won the fan vote in the American League to get in. Was aided by Rafael Devers being traded in the middle of the season. He was the leading vote getter by a lot, and then was removed from consideration. And all of a sudden, it was O'Hearn's to lose. So they actually had a starter in last year's All-Star game. We'll see if that is again the case with Adley Rutschman. They've had a couple of starters over the years. I can't remember if Santander started in the outfield in 24. I think he did. I know Austin Hayes did in 23. So it has been a running theme of the Orioles having a starter in there. Corbin Burns was in it in 24 as well. He started the All-Star game. So they had the pitcher. They had the starting pitcher.
Yeah.
That's who it was in 24. So they have to keep that streak alive. I think their best route to that would be Rutschman, but we'll see. Maybe Basayo squeezes in there. Yordan Alvarez has a checkered injury history, so what he looks like health-wise by the All-Star break will be important to watch there as well. But they got a couple of candidates, and certainly more than we thought a month ago that they might have with the way they've been playing. You could even say that if Kyle Bradish or Shane Baz go on a run right now, one of them could honestly force their way. I know they're right around top 20 in F4 right now in the American League among starting pitchers. So if one of them were to go on a run, as we've already are kind of seeing both of them starting to go on a run, since May 19th, Orioles rotation ranks second in ERA on Major League Baseball. So
that's a good stat.
Yeah, 27th in strikeouts.
Because say a month ago, this is not a conversation we'd be having, and this is a team undeserving of any.
Maybe Brandon Young's going to go on a run. I mean, the way he's pitching right now, he's their ace. So who knows? But the Orioles have ways to go before they're going to be getting kind of the heights of 23 and 24 when they were sending multiple guys in. But I would say that if they send more than one right now, wouldn't call it a surprise, but certainly it would mean some things broke their way over the next 6 weeks or whatever it is.
Be fun to see if they send two catchers. Like if you get Adley and Basayo to the All-Star game in the same year, and like those are your two representatives, I think that says a lot about. And I don't even mean this in a bad way. I think that says a lot about where you're at as an organization, the success you've had at that position.
Meanwhile, we're hearing all these rumors about the Orioles trading Adley to the Yankees. Has been floated around by the New York Post and Yankees fans picking it up. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that's not happening.
No.
When hell freezes over, are the Orioles trading Adley Rutschman to the Yankees, especially considering he has another year of control next year. There is just absolutely no way, even if the Orioles were to fall out of contention this year and be forced to sell at the trade deadline, they're going to be trying to compete again next year. And in no world do they want Adley Rutschman throwing out Jackson Holliday trying to steal bases in divisional games. Like that is just a worst case scenario. So I put the odds of that happening at 0. Zilch. That's going to do it for us here on Early Bird. Sam, it's been fun. First time we've been back in here in, I think, months.
Yeah.
Like almost 2 months.
Feels
here.
Like it's been a while.
Still a bit steamy in here. We've been working through some AC issues. We're delivering this podcast to you guys in 77-degree heat here inside. It feels great. Nice and toasty.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Holding back.
I'm going to go right back to the pool.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe I need to take a page out of your book. There's been a form sitting on my desk that I need to sign before I can go to the pool. So I have not gone yet. But once I fill
Hopefully
that out.
I'm motivating you.
Yeah. Now it's on the brain. So I'll be thinking about it. Sam, any final words for the good people?
I think that if Josh came into rookie money, he would get a haircut every day instead of every week.
He's going almost 2 weeks without a haircut. He said it's the longest in spring training.
Poor guy.
I know. He's fiending for it right now.
We feel for him.
We're thinking about you, Josh. I want to thank y'all so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Give us a 5-star review. And follow us on socials at Sun Early Birds on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. He's Sam Cohn. I'm Matt Weyrich. Thank y'all so much. Have a good one.